remember as a kid, I could hear the echo through the city. It's like this scream.
When they get into a 200-mile-an-hour car, there's an almost fighter pilot mentality.
Anything can happen.
I always think on my family.
All I do is pray for a safe race.
You need to respect the speed, but the second a driver has fear, you need to retire.
Formula One is the ultimate competition. Got drama.
There's a puncture!
Competitiveness, high stakes, politics.
How can you call that a fair championship?
It is described as a travelling circus.
We pack it all up, and 24 hours later, unpack it in a new part of the world.
We've all got thousands of employees that all share the desire to win.
The drivers are the best in the world.
We all believe we are the one.
Your teammate is your worst enemy.
He beats me every race. My career's done.
The ultimate goal is to be the best.
If you had Lewis Hamilton's same car, would you beat him?
Yes.
The highs are very high.
Grazie davvero.
The lows are very low.
I'm fucking sick of this. It's about making the correct choice.
Every day I break out in a cold sweat thinking, do I have the skill set to do it?
The risk of death will never go away.
Massive accident! I'm not worried about dying.
Whoa!
I'm willing to do anything.
Let's see who's the best. All right, am I good to sit?
Yeah.
All right, I'm good to go.
Are you happy with your hair?
I don't know, I haven't seen it. Probably, if you've asked me, then it must look shit.
Am I looking at you or down the lens?
At me, sorry.
Awesome.
Can I get you to tell me who you are and what you do for a job?
I'm Daniel Ricciardo and I'm a car mechanic. Alrighty, I got this. I'm gonna nail it. 3, 2, 1. I am Daniel Ricciardo. I was born in Perth, Australia, and I'm a Formula One driver. Sounds pretty good when I say that. I love that feeling of the car on the edge at such a high speed. I love the danger, that adrenaline and that excitement. More than anything, I love the feeling of winning. It's a beautiful thing.
And Ricciardo has got the inside line. Lewis Hamilton's brave defence of second place comes to an end. And down the inside goes Daniel Ricciardo.
That's how it's done, ladies.
And Daniel Ricciardo wins the Hungarian Grand Prix. I don't think anyone's smile could be bigger.
As a kid, I loved motorbikes. I loved NASCAR. Oh, shit. But F1, that was the fastest circuit cars in the world. That's really why I got into Formula One. I wanted to try and see if I could be the best in the world. Picturing myself on the top step of an F1 podium, I had visualized that feeling as a kid. To be world champion would mean the world to me.
Look at this game here.
For my family, my dream involved sacrifices. My dad was building his own business, but also taking me karting on the weekends and spending the money he'd made to then put into me.
Daniel's helmet. There you go.
I remember as if it was yesterday. Daniel said to me that he wanted to give it a go in Europe. And a lot of friends said, oh, how could you let him go? But He was so determined.
That looks great.
How do you do it? What am I doing wrong here? Rip it off, man.
All the struggles, all the bad days, leaving home so young, winning a world title, it would make it all worth it. When I got into F1, everyone knew me as the happy guy and the nice guy. But I do have a kind of killer instinct. I do believe I can be world champion, and for me, it's like, why else would I be doing this?
And welcome along for the opening round of the Formula One World Championship in 2018.
Welcome to the 23rd Australian Grand Prix, held here in Albert Park, for the traditional first race of the season.
No Australian has been classified in the top 3 of their home race. Is this the year?
First race of the season is my home one. I love having a home race, but it's wild, you know. There's so much anticipation being drawn to that first race in March.
Can we get a quick selfie, mate?
Yeah. Cheers.
And then, because it's in Australia, I'm the only Australian driver, I get that twofold.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
How important is this season for you, as being a season in which you can compete for the championship?
Super important. Obviously, I'll see where I am personally, see where we are competitively.
Everybody recognises Daniel Ricciardo as being one of the biggest talents in Formula One. But a lot of people think it's this year or bust for him to take his first world title.
I think it's going to be a really exciting year because we've got 3 teams that look capable of winning races.
Last season, Lewis Hamilton of Mercedes and Sebastian Vettel of Ferrari were the top 2. This season, we're really excited to see if Daniel Ricciardo with Red Bull can properly fight with those 2 drivers.
It's easy to say that a champion from a previous year is the favourite, but Red Bull are going to be very hard to beat.
How does it look for you?
It's looking exciting. I think it should be close at the top with Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull.
In Formula One, we've got 10 teams,
And each team is trying to develop the best car possible. The more money you spend, the better your car is likely to be. But there's a massive difference in budgets in Formula One.
The smaller teams are quite often operating on a budget that's a fraction the size of the very biggest teams, like Ferrari and Mercedes.
So it's not a level playing field.
Guys, I mean, you know the position we are in here, you know.
If I understood what Walter told me last night, there is one of everything.
I'm Gunther Steiner. I'm the team principal of Haas F1 team. I love racing. It's my passion. I started off in the bottom as a mechanic. I'm doing it a long time, more than 30 years.
Oh, yeah, then you should be.
Setting up a Formula One team in the US was my idea, and I persuaded Gene Haas to do this.
I think in turn one, he had no choice. He had to, everybody was going whatever.
Gene has got a very successful NASCAR team, and he knows how racing works.
So he hit somebody?
Yeah, he hit because he...
There's a lot of money in Formula One. Can you compete with the teams with the big budgets? It's pretty hard, you know, you're talking 500-600 million or 140 million. But you just got to keep trying and trying, and a lot of success in racing comes down to just being stubborn.
Haas F1 is the first American Formula One team in more than 30 years. And coming in as a new team in Formula One, it's just so difficult.
I'm not convinced, but I'm cautiously optimistic, as I call it.
In a small team, we have less parts, less stuff. We need to do more with less.
How many people in your team altogether?
212.
Mercedes have more people on holiday at any one time.
Yeah.
We are the underdogs. We are new in here, but for sure we're not here just to make the numbers up. We are here to compete.
It's the first Friday practice. Teams have 90 minutes to test their setups around this 3-mile circuit.
most special things about Formula One is the way the weekend builds. Friday is practice.
That's when the teams and drivers get out on track to try and set their cars up and make sure it's performing the best it can. Saturday there's qualifying to set the order that the cars will start the race in. And then on Sunday we have the race itself.
Every session is dangerous. Last season in Melbourne, during practice, there were 3 crashes.
You all right?
Are you happy with the strategy we are taking?
Yeah, fine. The problem is, at some point, one's going to be right, one's going to be wrong.
Exactly.
You never know.
My name's Christian Horner. I'm the team principal of Aston Martin Red Bull Racing, so Bach effectively stops with me.
Sebastian Vettel, you are the world champion!
We're a subsidiary of an energy drink that's come along and won 4 back-to-back world championships. But that's in the past.
What do you reckon?
You know, we've spent 5 seasons now where we should have been real contenders. We need to win races this year. We need to take the challenge to the big teams.
All right? Get out there and enjoy it. I will. Yeah? Thank you. Let your driving do the talking, you'll be fine.
Every team has 2 drivers. We're fortunate to have Daniel Ricciardo. He's at the top of his game.
Well, you can see the people who are with
And we've got this exciting emerging talent in Max Verstappen. But you can just feel that anticipation of how we design a good car this year. Is it going to be successful? Is it going to be reliable?
Okay, well, let's see how we go.
I think it looks okay. I'm suggesting we go and have a little look now.
Okay.
Let's go, please.
As a race car driver, your feeling is so in tune that you know after a few laps if the car is fast. A lot of it for me is confidence within the car, just having a feeling under the braking. Because you're coming up to a corner 300-something kilometers an hour, your instinct is like brake now, brake now, brake now, and you've got to push yourself to brake later and later and trust that the car will stop.
He's got confidence in that car. He is ripping the wheels off that.
What's your headline for today then?
Red Bull. They could easily find themselves in the front of the grid.
You're doing a good job.
Thanks, guys.
We had serious pace today. The car was performing well.
And at the end of the day, performance is everything. I want to win because it's what I believe I can do, and I've worked all these years to do it. So no one's going to put more pressure on me than myself.
So who can set the fastest lap today and start tomorrow's race on pole position?
In qualifying, it's all designed to set the order for the start of the race.
Here's the time that they've all got to beat. Lewis Hamilton crosses the line. It's a 1:21.1.
If you start in a good position, you have a much better chance of winning the race.
Qualifying is the moment that you see these cars on the absolute limit. The driver pushing it to boundaries that you don't even know quite where the edge is.
It's Valtteri Bottas. That's Bottas wrecking his qualifying, wrecking his car.
It's not going to polish out, is it?
Guys, I just wanted to speak with you a few minutes before we need to go out on the track and see what we can do. So, from Gene's and my side, we are confident that we can do better than last year. I think on the pit stops, we have got a few new people, and it will be, I wouldn't say difficult, but we need to get used to the new people in the pit stops. So, I think we can do it. Thank you very much, guys.
How many minutes? He said that it should be really 3 minutes that he is warming up the carbon fiber. Yeah.
My name is Kevin Magnussen. I'm 26 years old and I drive for Haas F1 team. Qualifying is really intense. There's a lot of pressure in Formula 1 to deliver results and to perform well, and that's the hardest thing about it.
With Kevin Magnussen underneath the bridges, we go and they touched, and that could have been very nasty indeed.
I don't have fear when I drive. I don't ever think about the consequences of crashing the car. I'm not worried about dying. I'll do anything I can to get the best results possible.
Okay, watch the traffic light and the white line. Did you copy?
To drive a lap fast, it's all rhythm and feeling. You feel just like one with the car, as if it was your body. For me, it feels like flying. It's almost like having superpowers.
Magnussen, and he's absolutely nailed sectors 1 and 2. What's his time going to be? A 1:23.1, and that's a sensational lap from Haas.
My God, Stan, you fucking did it. Jesus. Whoa.
What a performance from Haas. They'll be 5th and 6th in tomorrow's race, the highest they've ever started in a Grand Prix.
Great job. I'm really proud of you.
Well done, guys. Fucking hell. Well done.
Well done. 50.
Dalle montagne!
Thank you. Hi, Gene. That wasn't bad, though. Fuck. So, yeah, with the big boys, yeah. Pretty cool. We start 5th and 6th.
When we started, everybody told us we will fail, but Gene supported me all the way and has put a lot of faith in me, and failing in doing this is not an option. We need to succeed.
20 drivers, 21 races. There can only be one world champion. Welcome along to the Formula 1 World Championship.
I love race day. That feeling of having the fans, you know, right there.
It's ringing. Hi, Chris. How you going?
This is Daniel Ricciardo, Chris. That's my dad, Daniel.
Hometown kids, so a lot of fans, a lot of support, and let's try and give them something to cheer about.
How are you?
How are you, buddy?
Yeah. Good. Good. Oh, you just got in. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
See ya. Wow. Wow.
I know.
This is how the grid will line up. The reigning champion, Lewis Hamilton, on pole. Kimi Raikkonen in second, out-qualifying his 4-time world champion teammate, Sebastian Vettel. Max Verstappen starts 4th. Kevin Magnussen is 5th, giving Haas their best ever start. Daniel Ricciardo is in 8th. after receiving a penalty in practice, so he'll face a huge challenge to get a podium today.
When the race starts, it's a great moment. To be actually in charge of one of the teams out there. That is what I dreamed for when I was a kid.
The atmosphere is tense. You can feel your body is ready to perform.
If someone says they don't get nervous, they're lying. The nerves for me is that anticipation of what we're about to do.
Immediately before a race, I block out all of the other distractions. I'm very conscious that when I look into the driver's eyes, the risk that he's taking on. You have a car going in excess of 200 miles an hour, racing wheel to wheel. These guys have an almost fighter pilot mentality, and that's what separates them from mere mortals.
I remember when he was little going to Melbourne, we had grandstand tickets right opposite the pits. All the drivers are there, and I'm thinking, that's somebody's child. And I was thinking for these poor mothers, and then I ended up being one of them. I never, ever, ever thought that I'd be there one day watching my son.
Radio. Check, 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 check. Okay, so latest info. Wind is stronger today. So you got headwind into turn 1.
Okay. You've got hundreds of people on the grid. And then you've got the 30-second warning.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
And then all the mechanics go. The grid is then empty, and it's just you and the other drivers.
Rushing into the first corner, it's all instinctive.
Great start from Kevin Magnussen. He's managed to get past Max Verstappen.
Come on, mate, straight in. We haven't got time for this.
Daniel Ricciardo down the inside. He's made up a place.
Emotionally, we're sort of always up and down. All I ever do is pray for a safe race, and then everything else is a bonus.
It's the biggest thing that we're always worried about. Number one thing. Don't even like talking about it now, you know, it makes me nervous.
It's hugely intense. You're looking an awful lot at numbers, at split times, at the sawtooth graphs.
Ricciardo's on a charge up the inside of Nico Hülkenberg.
Nice job, mate.
Hülkenberg fights back. He's got the inside line, but Ricciardo sweeps on by.
It's mentally draining because you're dealing two cars, two different outcomes.
Max recommends saving your overtake for the one place you feel Magnussen is most vulnerable.
And he's gone off!
No, fuck no.
Verstappen just spun.
Grosjean goes past, Ricciardo goes past.
For fuck's sake, man.
Okay, Max.
Yeah.
This is dreamland for Haas. So there's now only Mercedes and Ferraris in front of the young American Haas team.
This is racing. It's realizing it's a big opportunity, the unknown, what you're doing.
Oh, we've got a massive lockup. That's Magnussen.
That's about to go, guys. It's starting to understand more and more now.
Okay. Box, cabin box, please confirm.
Box.
In the pit stops, that is the only time that you really get in touch with your team. You're on your own on the track. Everything is depending on you. When you pit, that changes completely. That's when you realize how much of a team effort it is.
Kevin Magnussen has pitted.
I don't think that's tight. Left rear. I don't do any other one. I'm sure it's not tight.
There you go, guys.
And who's that going slowly? It's Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. He's just come out of the pit lane, and now he's grinding to a halt.
Stop the car, stop the car, stop the car, stop the car, stop the car.
Magnussen was on for a sensational result, but now he's retiring.
It's heartbreaking. You don't want it to be true.
And by the looks of things, one of those wheels isn't attached properly.
You just cope with it. You've got two drivers. You just try to stay as calm as possible and focus on the race.
Box now.
Grosjean has now pitted and makes his way back onto the circuit, so Ricciardo now has clear air. That's good news for the Red Bull team. As Grosjean, is that Grosjean going slowly? It is!
Stop the car, stop the car. We have the front left loose. Stop the car, stop the car.
Romain Grosjean pulling over in the other Haas. So both Haases, as soon as they leave the pit lane, have ground to a halt. Unbelievable.
What could have been one of their best weekends on a racetrack has turned into absolute disaster.
When you see it happen on the screen, you think this cannot happen. This is not real. We lost it all in 2 laps. In Formula 1, the highs are very high, the lows are very low. It's easy in my position to blame somebody, but then in the end, the buck stops with me.
Forward and media out here. Are you happy to speak to people?
Oh, yeah, we need to. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I mean,
It's a sad afternoon. We've seen all your people, they're heartbroken as well as the drivers. How is it to be a boss in a moment like that?
I mean, in the end, as a boss, you need to lead. I'm sure my disappointment is as big as theirs. We need first to see what went wrong before we can fix it.
Otherwise, you say some nasty words? No. Okay, thanks.
We were in 4th and 5th position.
Just help me with those guys.
Yeah.
And that would have been by far the best result for the team in its history.
I don't know, Gene. I don't have the answer to that one. We just fucked this one up. Yeah. It doesn't make it right. I know that, you know. Saying it fucked it up, it doesn't make it right. Just like same mistake. It's unbelievable. The 2 guys putting the wheel on, they were new. 4th and 5th, but Gene, we finished 4th and 5th here. We fucking look like rock stars, huh? And now we are a fucking bunch of wanker, yeah, bunch of fucking clowns here. I will do a proper investigation, Gene, don't worry, you know that. I will fix it, trust me. The wheel just wasn't done enough, huh?
It felt tight, but as it dropped, it visually looked as though it was loose. Not done up properly, so.
Do you think we train not enough? Or?
We haven't practiced this weekend at all. Tiredness as well. I don't think that'll help. Just on the back foot this weekend.
Yeah. But the wheels were not completely on, you know?
I'm devastated and I am really sorry, so.
Raikkonen running in 3rd position, 4th for Daniel Ricciardo. He's fought his way back from 8th place. If he can get on the podium today, it would mean so much for Daniel Ricciardo.
Mate, that is blistering pace. I don't want to let him breathe. Doing the right thing. Let's keep the pressure on. Understood.
No Australian has been classified in the top 3 of their home race. He will be doing his damnedest on this final lap.
He might as well use the battery.
Understood.
Sebastian Vettel wins the Grand Prix. Hamilton 2nd. 3rd across the line. It's just Kimi Raikkonen with Daniel Ricciardo in 4th.
Oh, half a second in it. Well done, mate.
That was a very good job today, mate. You did get the quickest lap of the race.
Yeah, I tried.
We had serious pace today. We had a real chance of a podium, and I wanted it so bad. I really believe that I should be winning more frequently. I believe I've got the talent and I put in the work. So it's not anger, but it's frustration that comes through.
And the winner from Germany, Sebastian Vettel.
Fuck, I nearly threw something on the TV.
Yeah, food delivery.
Anyway,
I tried.
Yeah,
No,
you did.
yeah.
No, I know you did.
It was good. Good result.
You got the crowd excited. Yeah, I tried. They were cheering you on. I tried. I mean, the pace when you dropped back and you banged in a 25. Even I didn't think we were that quick.
It's a long season. You know, these cars develop so quickly. You'll know where you'll be starting, but you don't know where you'll be finishing. Things change.
I'd love to be winning tomorrow if I could. That's my ultimate dream. I'm pretty far from that at the moment. I know that things like that don't happen overnight. I'm in a great team that I can grow and prepare myself. Then hopefully one day I can get a chance to fight for a championship.
We should have done better. Everybody in Haas wants to do better, but so does everybody else. Why you watch Formula One? You want to see action, you want to see drama, you want to see the underdog making a good result. A story. Each race should have a story, and the story should not be all the time Mercedes or Ferrari wins, because that story gets old pretty quick.
My teammate Max is becoming more of a threat.
He's one of the most exciting talents in Formula One.
I need to be the faster driver of the two.
There's no more brutal lesson than what he's just had.
Fernando Alonso is my racing hero. Okay, Carlos, Alonso behind you.
The stakes have never been higher for McLaren.
I think these guys are really not fucking win.
The Trotter Chronicles, From Gold to Grit, a novelization by Gemini. Prologue, The Man in the Sharp Suit. The air in the office was thick with the scent of expensive mahogany and the faint, clinical aroma of high-end air purifiers. Justin, a man whose skin looked like it had been buffed by a professional at a Swiss spa, leaned back in his leather chair. He adjusted his glasses, looking at the two men sitting across from him. One of them, Derek Delboy Trotter, was a man who looked like he belonged in a very different kind of office one, with a calendar of a local garage on the wall and a lingering smell of cigar smoke and hopeful desperation. Del was dressed in what he considered his business best, a suit that shimmered just a bit too much under the fluorescent lights, and enough gold jewelry to make a pirate blush. Next to him sat Rodney, younger, leaner, and perpetually looking like he had just realized he'd left the oven on at home. Rodney was sweating, not the confident sweat of an athlete, but the cold, clammy moisture of a man who knew his brother was about to say something that would embarrass them both for the next century. "I've got all the basic details about your business career," Justin began, his voice smooth and devoid of any Peckham grit. "But what I'd like to do is to get an insight into the real you. How you started, how you became so successful, but more importantly, your lives and your raison d'etre." Del Boy's eyes lit up. He didn't know what a raison d'etre was, but it sounded French, and in Del's world, French meant class. "Oh, no," Del whispered to Rodney, "Laboratory Garni." Rodney closed his eyes and prayed for the floor to open. "It's not Laboratory Garni. Del," he hissed, "he's asking for our reason for being." "Exactly what I said. Prove," Del snapped back, before turning to Justin with a smile that could sell ice to an Eskimo and then charge him for the delivery. "Well, Justin, where shall I start? Up to a few years ago, we were just very ordinary people living, well, very ordinary lives, weren't we, Rodney?" And so the story began. A story of a watch found in a garage, a fortune made in an instant, and a fall so spectacular it made the Hindenburg look like a minor fender bender. Chapter 1, The Caribbean Dream. The sun over Barbados didn't just shine, it announced itself. It turned the turquoise water into a sheet of diamonds and the white sand into something so bright it hurt to look at without designer sunglasses, which, of course, the Trotters were wearing. Only a few months prior, the Trotters had been living in a council flat in Peckham, wondering if the hooky VCers they were selling would last through the first reel of Rambo. Then came the watch, an 18th century Harrison marine chronometer hidden in their garage for decades. It had sold at Sotheby's for £6.5 million. In an instant, Derek Trotter, the man who once sold one-legged turkeys at Christmas, was a multimillionaire. "Look at this, Rodney," Del had said, leaning over the balcony of their private villa. He was holding a glass of something blue with a miniature umbrella in it. Total luxury. This is what we were born for. Mange tout, Rodney, mange tout. Rodney was sitting in a hammock, trying to read a book on sociology, but failing because Cassandra kept applying sun cream to his back. It's a bit much, isn't it, Del? I mean, 6 months ago we were sharing a bathroom with a leak that Uncle Albert called characterful. Characterful. It was a health hazard. Del laughed. But look at us now. We've divvied the dosh up. We made sure Uncle Albert got a nice little drink, figuratively speaking, though knowing him, he's probably literally drinking most of it down on the coast with Elsie Partridge. They had been the kings of the island. They donated to charity mostly because Del liked the gala dinners, and they invested. Oh, how they invested. Del had met a man in a bar. A visionary, Del called him. A con artist, Rodney had countered. The man spoke of Central American markets, of vibrant ventures, and emerging economies. He spoke of turning millions into billions. It was a royal mint. Rodney, Del shouted into the tropical wind. We were making money while we slept. But the Caribbean sun has a way of blinding you to the clouds on the horizon. Chapter 2. The Sound of the Crash. The end didn't come with a bang. It came with a phone call and a decline message on a credit card at a 5-star hotel. What do you mean? Insufficient funds, Del had barked at the hotel manager, his gold rings clacking against the marble countertop. Do you know who I am? I'm Derek Trotter. I've got more money than the Sultan of Brunei's paperboy. The manager was polite but firm. The Central American market hadn't just dipped, it had evaporated. A coup, a currency collapse, and a series of creative accounting errors by their visionary friend had turned the Trotter fortune into a pile of worthless digital ash. Rodney, Del whispered, his face turning a shade of gray that matched the London fog they had tried so hard to escape. The negotiations. They've collapsed. Collapsed. Rodney felt his stomach drop. Del, we put everything into that venture. The houses, the stocks, the peacocks. I know. Del said, his bravado finally cracking. We've even paid for this hotel on a credit card. A credit card which has now been withdrawn. The journey back to the UK was a blur of cramped airplane seats and the crushing realization that the dream was over. They weren't returning to a hero's welcome. They were returning to a financial wilderness. And it wasn't just them. Back in Peckham, the ripples of their failure were turning into waves. Michael Fisher, the landlord of the Nag's Head and a man who had trusted Del with his life savings, was now behind bars. He had remortgaged the pub to follow the Trotter gold mine, and when it collapsed, he had tried to recoup the losses by embezzling from the brewery. He was a desperate man, and Del felt the weight of every brick in Mike's prison cell. Chapter 3. The Court of Peckham. The corridors of the courthouse felt like a tomb. Denzel, a man whose nerves were usually held together by habit and hope, was pacing so fast he was nearly burning a hole in the linoleum. Denzel, sit down, Albert's voice echoed. Denzel stopped and looked at the group gathered. There was Trigger, looking as vacant as a Sunday morning in a library. There was Boyke, looking smug despite the circumstances. And there was Sid, the cafe owner, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I can't, Albert, Denzel groaned. I've never been a character witness before. I'm worried. I think Dole's made a terrible mistake having us for here. It's like inviting the Manson family to dinner. Don't be so dramatic, Trigger said, staring at a fly on the wall. I'm going to tell them I hear voices. Trigger, you're not the one on trial, Denzel hissed. I know, Trigger replied simply, but I still hear voices. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was even grimmer. The Inland Revenue was a beast that didn't care about mange tout or lovely jubbly. They wanted their pound of flesh, and they wanted it in sterling. Dell and Rodney stood before the judge. The properties were gone. The cars were gone. The peacocks had probably been repossessed by a very confused bailiff. Are there any mitigating circumstances? Their lawyer asked. Dell stepped forward, adjusting his tie. Oh, yes, you must remember to tell them that we were slaves to detail, wouldn't you, Rodney? We made certain that we always got our checks off to the Inland Revenue on time. Always, Rodney added, his voice cracking. Fair dues, Dell whispered as the judge looked down at them. They bounced, but they was always on time. The verdict was swift. Bankruptcy. They weren't going to prison, not yet, but they were being stripped of everything. The debt stood at $48,750 for pounds. It was a number that haunted those dreams. It wasn't just money, it was the price of his pride. Chapter 4, The Wrong Gentleman. Amidst the financial ruins, a personal tragedy struck. Uncle Albert, the man who had survived the Battle of the Atlantic only to be nearly killed by those cooking 1,000 times, had passed away. The funeral was a somber affair, or it should have been. The Trotters arrived at the cemetery, faces long and hearts heavy. I feel bad, you know, Dell whispered to Rodney as they walked toward the open grave, leaving him here on his own while we was all off globe-trotting. He wasn't on his own, Dell, Rodney said. He had Elsie. He was happy. They stood by the grave, listening to the vicar speak of a man named Bunny who had served in the RAF. Bunny, Dell frowned. Why did he call him Bunny? Well, that's what they called him in the RAF, didn't they? A stranger next to them whispered, because his surname was Warren. Dell froze. He looked at the headstone. He looked at the grieving widow, who was definitely not Elsie Partridge. He looked at the photo of the deceased man who looked remarkably like Albert, but was missing the signature during the war beard. Rodney, Dell hissed, his eyes wide. Is that a Spitfire on the coffin? Yeah, Rodney whispered back. We're at the wrong funeral. They retreated with the quiet dignity of two men who had just realized they were mourning a complete stranger. It was the perfect metaphor for their lives, showing up with good intentions only to realize they were in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong dead relative. Chapter 5. New Management. Back at Nelson Mandela House, the flat felt smaller than it used to. The wallpaper was peeling, and the ghost of their millionaire lifestyle lingered in the form of a single, half-empty bottle of expensive cognac. The firm's been liquidated, Rodney said, staring at the kitchen table. Trotter's Independent Traders is no more. It's caput. No, 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 Dell said, his mind racing. The firm can go on trading. It's just that I've been disqualified from running it. That doesn't mean to say I can't work for it. He looked at Rodney, really looked at him. We need a new managing director, Dell mused. Someone young, someone enthusiastic, someone full of ideas. Rodney looked around the room. Who? The window cleaner. No, Rodney, you. Rodney's jaw dropped. Me? Dell, I can't run a company. I can't even run a bath without getting a headache. Legally, there is nothing to stop you, Dell insisted. You're clean. No bankruptcy, no disqualification. You'd be the boss. Rodney Trotter, managing director. And so, the power dynamic shifted. Within days, the local paper carried a small advertisement, Trotter's Independent Traders, now under new management. Managing Director, Rodney Trotter. Rodney took to the role with a terrifying level of seriousness. He started wearing a tie at breakfast. He spoke about executive stress and logistical paradigms. He even tried to listen to Mozart to unwind. Mozart's Symphony No. 38 in D major. Rodney explained to Trigger one evening in the flat. I find it helps me ease my executive stress. Trigger nodded slowly. Ain't there no words to this, Dave? No, Trigger, it's instrumental. Dell watched his brother with a mix of pride and annoyance. He was back in the game, even if he was technically just the staff. But the debt to the taxman still loomed. They needed a big score. They needed a miracle. And then the phone rang. Chapter 6, The Gold Rush. The studio lights were blinding. Jonathan Ross, a man who seemed to be made of charisma and expensive hair products, smiled at the camera. Welcome to Gold Rush, he announced, the fastest game show on TV. This is the show where you can win anything from £1 to £100,000. In the contestants' seat sat Derek Trotter. He had lied about his hobbies, claiming to love 16th century Italian Renaissance art instead of seeing what fell off the back of a lorry. And he had navigated the early rounds with the cunning of a street fox. He reached the final stages. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knockoff Swiss Army knife. For £50,000, Derek, Jonathan Ross said, leaning in. Which classical guitarist wrote the opera The Child and The Enchantment? Was it Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Del felt the sweat prickling under his shimmery suit. He knew this, or he thought he knew it, but his brain was a jumble of French phrases and Peckham market prices. I'm going to have to use me old SOS, aren't I? Del said, his voice trembling. I'll call my brother, Rodney. Back at the flat, Rodney and Cassandra were dressed in their fantasy therapy outfits, Rodney as a gladiator and Cassandra as a police officer. It was supposed to be a quiet night of memory baggage unloading. The phone screamed. Hello. Rodney snapped, assuming it was their annoying neighbor, Mickey Pierce. Piss off, Mickey, you're getting on my tits now. Rodney, it's Jonathan Ross. The silence that followed was deafening. Rodney realized he had just told one of the most famous men in Britain to piss off. Rodney, we need your help, Jonathan said, hurried. Derek is on 25,000, going for 50. Which classical guitarist wrote the opera The Child and The Enchantment? Was it Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Rodney didn't hesitate. He had to GCEs. He had been listening to Mozart for a week. He was an executive. Ravel, Rodney said with absolute certainty. 100%. Del, it's Ravel. Del turned back to the camera, his chest puffed out. I'll go with that, Jonathan. It's Ravel. Jonathan Ross looked at him with a face full of pity. Derek, that was the wrong answer. It was Rodrigo. The world seemed to stop spinning. Del's face went through every shade of red known to man. He had lost it all. Again. On national television. Chapter 7, The Phoenix of Peckham. The silence in the flat that night was heavy. Del sat on the sofa, still wearing his game show suit, staring at the floor. Raquel was in the kitchen, and Rodney was hiding in his room, probably trying to find a way to dismantle his gladiator armor without making a sound. The phone rang. If that's Mickey Pierce, Del growled, picking it up. I'm going to murder him. Hello, is this Derek Trotter? A voice asked. It sounded professional. This is the producer of Gold Rush. Del rolled his eyes. Oh, give it a rest, Mickey. I can hear the jukebox in the Nag's Head from here. No, Mr. Trotter. This is serious. We've made a mistake. Our researchers checked the facts. Ravel did write the music for The Child and The Enchantment. Even though he's a composer and not primarily a guitarist, the question was flawed. Del sat up straight. A mistake? You mean I was right? You were right. We're offering you the £50,000 or the chance to come back and play for the 100,000. Del looked at the room. He looked at Rodney, who had peeked his head out of the bedroom door. He looked at Raquel, who was standing in the doorway with hope in her eyes. Give all the money to charity, Del shouted into the phone, his old bravado returning in a rush of adrenaline. And if you phone here once again, I'm going to come down there and kick your arse into shredded duck. Goodbye. He slammed the phone down. Dell, Rodney screamed. What are you doing? That was 50 grand. Dell started to laugh. A deep, wheezing Peckham laugh. It was Mickey Pierce, Rodney. I could hear the jukebox. He thought he could wind me up, but nobody winds up Derek Trotter. He stood up, adjusting his cuffs. We're the Trotters, Rodney. We don't need charity. We're back in business. New management, new ideas, this time next year. Rodney sighed, but he couldn't help but smile. We'll be millionaires? No, Dell said, throwing an arm around his brother's shoulder. This time next year, we'll be debt-free. And that, Rodney, is bonjour. It's bonjour, Dell, Rodney corrected. Exactly what I said. Prove exactly what I said. The neon sign of the Nag's Head flickered in the distance, a beacon of hope in the heart of Peckham. The Trotters were down, but they were never out. Because as long as there was a deal to be made and a brother to blame, the dream would never die. Chapter 8. The Cold Light of Day. The following morning did not bring the clarity Del Boy had hoped for. Instead, it brought a pounding headache and the lingering suspicion that he might have made a catastrophic tactical error. He sat at the Formica table in the kitchen, nursing a mug of tea that was mostly sugar. Rodney stumbled in, looking disheveled. Del, Rodney said, his voice flat. I've been thinking about that phone call last night. Forget it, Rodney, Del snapped. Mickey Pierce, professional wind-up merchant, probably recorded the whole thing to play at the pub later. Low D toilet, Rodney. Water under the bridge. Del, I went to the pub this morning to get some milk because the fridge is on the blink again. And Mickey Pierce was there. He looked as miserable as a rainy Tuesday in Margate. Apparently, his latest business ventures selling laser-cut toast just failed. He didn't even have enough credit on his phone to make a prank call. Del froze, his mug halfway to his lips. What? And there's more. Sid showed me the morning paper. There's a small headline on page 12. Game show blunder. BBC apologizes to Peckham contestant over classical music gaffe. The silence in the kitchen was heavy. You could hear the distant rumble of the 171 bus and the slow, rhythmic dripping of the leaky tap. So, Del whispered, his voice barely audible. It wasn't Mickey. It was the producer. Del, you told the BBC to give £50,000 to charity in the name of the Trotters. Del Boy put his mug down. He stared at the wall, at the framed picture of their mother. Well, he said, his voice suddenly bright and brittle. At least we'll get a plaque or a mention in the newsletter. It's tax deductible, ain't it? We don't pay tax. Del, we're bankrupt, Rodney shouted. Details, Rodney, details. Del stood up, pacing the small kitchen. This is just a temporary setback. a minor hiccup in the grand tapestry of Trotter fortunes. We're under new management. Remember, Managing Director Rodney Trotter. What's our first move, boss? Rodney looked at the pile of unpaid bills on the counter. Our first move is to find something to sell. Something that doesn't involve the Sultan of Brunei or the BBC. Chapter 9, The Electronic Revolution. Rodney's first official act as managing director was to meet with Monkey Harris. Monkey was a man who lived up to his name short, agile, and always looking for a way to climb a bit higher on the social ladder. He met Rodney in the back of a van parked behind the Nag's Head. "I've got a consignment." "Rodney," Monkey whispered, opening a cardboard box. "Electronic personal organizers. Top of the range. They tell the time, store 500 names, and have a built-in calculator. They're selling like crazy in the West End." Rodney picked one up. It was a sleek, black plastic device that looked like something from a low-budget sci-fi movie. "How much?" "For you. A tenner apiece. I've got 200 of them." Rodney calculated. 200 at £10 was 2,000. If they sold them for 30, that was for £1,000 profit. It wasn't 50,000, but it was a start. "I'll take them," Rodney said, trying to sound executive. "But I'll need to pay in installments. Cash flow, you understand?" Monkey nodded. "I understand. Cash flow is the soul of business. I'll drop them off at Nelson Mandela House tonight." When Rodney returned to the flat, he found Del Boy trying to fix the washing machine with a bent coat hanger. "Good news, Del. I've secured our first inventory. Electronic personal organizers. The future of business. We're going to modernize Peckham. One address book at a time." Del looked at the device. Electronic organizers. People round here can barely organize a trip to the toilet. "Rodney, who's going to buy these?" "Everyone. Busy professionals, students, anyone who needs to stay on top of their game. It's executive stress management. Del, der chic." "HMM," Del said, his eyes narrowing. "They look a bit plastic. Are they waterproof?" "Why would they need to be waterproof?" "In case it rains on the market stall. Rodney, think avoirdupois." Chapter 10, Iconoclastic Autosuggestion. While the business world was being revolutionized by plastic organizers, the domestic world of the Trotters was entering the realm of fantasy therapy. Cassandra had insisted, after the stress of the bankruptcy and the game show disaster, she felt their relationship needed a reboot. She had found a book by an American psychologist who spoke of memory baggage and the need to create our own make-believe world. Iconoclastic autosuggestion. Rodney explained to Del Boy while they were sorting the organizers. It's about rejecting reality and becoming different people, just for an evening. Sounds like what I've been doing for 40 years, Rodney, Del quipped. "What's the catch?" We write down our fantasy figures, and then we become them. No dressing up. It's all in the mind. But as with everything in the Trotter household, the no dressing up rule was the first to go. Thursday night arrived. Del had agreed to take Raquel and Damien out to see a film, giving Rodney and Cassandra the flat to themselves. Or so Rodney thought. I'm taking them to see that new cartoon, Del said, adjusting his coat, the one about the singing fish. We'll be back late. Enjoy your auto-suggestion. Rodney waited until the door closed. He went to his bedroom and emerged 10 minutes later wearing a leather skirt, a plastic chest plate, and sandals. He looked like he had been rejected from a high school production of Spartacus. Cassandra emerged from the bathroom. She was wearing a police uniform, complete with a hat and a plastic truncheon. Rodney, she gasped. I thought we said no dressing up. I couldn't help it. Cass, the book said to fully immerse yourself. I'm Russell Crowe in Gladiator. And I'm a detective from the Bill. Cassandra sighed. You look different. Strength and honor, Cassandra, Rodney said, striking a pose that nearly caused his chest plate to pop off. Now, let us unload our baggage. They sat on the sofa, trying to be reborn, but the atmosphere was somewhat dampened by the smell of those lingering cigar smoke and the faint sound of the neighbors' heavy metal music. So, Rodney began, trying to deepen his voice. On my signal, unleash the feelings. Rodney, I don't feel like a detective. I feel like an idiot. That's just the memory baggage talking. Reject it. You are an officer of the law. I am a hero of Rome. Suddenly, the front door burst open. We're back, Del Boy shouted, stumbling in with Raquel and Damien. The cinema was full. Apparently, every kid in Peckham wants to see a singing fish. He stopped dead. He looked at Rodney. He looked at Cassandra. Oh, my God, Del whispered, his eyes widening. Rodney, what have you done to her? Is she arresting you? It's therapy, Del, Rodney hissed, trying to hide behind a cushion. Go away. Therapy? You look like you're about to fight a lion in a police station. Del started to laugh. A deep, wheezing sound. Raquel, come and see this. Russell Crowe and the Bill are having a meeting in our front room. The fantasy was officially over. Reality hadn't just returned. It had kicked the door down and started laughing at them. Chapter 11, The Sultan's Shadow. A few days later, the executive's stress was reaching a fever pitch. The organizers weren't selling as well as Rodney hoped, mostly because people in Peckham preferred to write their numbers on the back of cigarette packets. Rodney was sitting at the kitchen table, Mozart playing softly in the background, when the phone rang. Trotter's Independent Traders, Managing Director Rodney Trotter speaking, he said, trying to sound bored and important. Good evening, a voice said, with a thick, exotic accent. I am wishing to speak with managing director. Rodney's eyes narrowed. This is he. Who is calling? My name is Asif Hazen. I am representative of Sultan of Brunei. Rodney rolled his eyes. He looked at Del Boy, who was pretending to read the paper but was clearly listening. The Sultan of Brunei, Rodney repeated loudly. Well, how can I be of assistance, sir? His Highness has seen your advertisement in the newspaper. He is very impressed with your party planning and consultancy. Is he now? Rodney smirked. And what does His Highness want? Does he want me to fly out and organize a palace warming? Exactly. He wants you to fly to Brunei. All expenses paid. He has bought a crappy old three-wheeled van, and he wants to know where to start it on cold mornings. Rodney's smirk vanished. He slammed the phone down. Shove it, Mickey, he yelled at the dead line. Just shove it. What happened? Del asked, looking up. Dave's just had a big row with the Sultan of Brunei. It was Mickey Pierce, Del. I could hear the jukebox. He thinks he's so clever, using an accent. But as Rodney sat back down, his Mozart symphony reached a crescendo. He looked at the advertisement he had placed. He had listed consultancy and party planning. It was a professional advert. He looked at the phone. For a fleeting second, he wondered, what if the Sultan of Brunei really did have an old van? What if he really did need a consultant from Peckham? Del, Rodney whispered, do you think? Don't worry, Rodney, Del said, patting him on the shoulder. The world's full of surprises. Look at Nicky Pierce, he's only just learned to read. They sat in the quiet flat, to brothers bound by blood, bankruptcy, and a never-ending cycle of nearly and almost. They were back where they started, in Nelson Mandela House, with a mountain of debt and a box of plastic organizers. But as the neon sign of the Nags had flickered outside, Del Boy looked at his brother. This time next year, Rodney, he said, the old spark returning to his eyes. This time next year, we'll have sold all them organizers. We'll be back on top. Mange tout, Rodney. Mange tout. And in the heart of Peckham, that was enough. The end of Volume I. The Peckham Phoenix. A novelization of the Trotter Chronicles. Chapter 1, The Yellow Ghost of Peckham. The yellow three-wheeled Reliant Regal then rattled through the streets of Peckham like a skeletal remains of a decade everyone else had tried to forget. On its side, the faded lettering still defiantly proclaimed, Trotters Independent Traders, New York, Paris, Peckham. It was a lie, of course. They had been to Paris briefly. They had never been to New York, and Peckham was currently trying its best to pretend they didn't exist. Derek Del Boy Trotter sat behind the wheel, his rings catching the stray glints of a London sun that looked like it had been filtered through a greasy chip wrapper. He was humming the theme tune to his own life, a melody of seasons changing and tides turning. I'll fetch the suitcase from the van, he muttered to himself, a mantra of the perpetual salesman. Beside him sat Rodney. Rodney, the graduate with 2 GCs and a brain that was currently a chaotic blender of existential dread and marital anxiety. Rodney was looking at the dashboard as if it were a ticking bomb. "What's up with you, Rodney?" Dell asked, his voice a gravelly mix of concern and irritation. "You look like a man who's just found out his lottery ticket was for last week's draw." "I'm a bit nervous, Dell," Rodney admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "This bloke we're going to see, this Justin, he's a documentary maker, right? He's not going to be asking me anything personal about my private life." Dell swung the van around the corner with the grace of a shopping trolley in a hurricane. "Of course he ain't. We're not that private, are we? We're public figures, the trotters of Nelson Mandela House. But what about, me and Cassandra, our hiccups?" Dell rolled his eyes. "He's not going to want to know about your little problems in the bedroom department, Rodney. Though, strictly speaking, if you're having hiccups in the bedroom, you're probably doing it wrong." "I told you that in confidence," Rodney hissed, his face reddening to the color of a ripe tomato. "And I'm keeping it in confidence," Dell shouted back. "I'm not going to be telling him about jiffins and what Cassandra wears. I've got more class than that, mostly." Chapter 2, The Interrogator. Justin was the kind of man who wore spectacles not because he needed them, but because they made his expensive degree look even more expensive. His office was a minimalist vacuum of white walls and overpriced Scandinavian furniture. He looked at the Trotter brothers as if they were a rare species of beetle that had accidentally crawled onto his silk tie. "Sorry to keep you waiting," Justin said, his voice dripping with the practiced sincerity of a BBC middle manager. "It's been a particularly busy morning. Now, I've got all the basic details about your business career, the watches, the bottled water, the pre-war lead soldiers. But what I'd like to do is to get an insight into the real you." Dell leaned back, crossing his legs and adjusting his tie. He felt at home. Give Del Boy an audience and a chance to rewrite history, and he was more dangerous than a shark in a tuxedo. "How you started, how you became so successful," Justin continued, leaning forward. "But more importantly, your lives and your raison d'etre." Dell blinked. "Oh, no. Laboratory Garni. I don't use that stuff. It's all natural, this hair." Rodney groaned into his hands. "He means reason for being, Dell." "I knew that," Dell snapped. "I was just checking if he did." "Right then, Justin, where shall I start? Up to a few years ago, we were just very ordinary people living very ordinary lives, weren't we, Rodney?" Rodney gave a hollow laugh. "Ordinary, Dell, our childhood involved hiding from the rent collector behind a sofa that was technically also being repossessed. Details, details. Dell waved a hand dismissively. And then, as you know, one day I discovered an historic and almost priceless artifact. A watch. A Harrison Lesser watch. Found it in the back of a garage. It was like a sign from the gods of commerce. Chapter 3, The Golden Age. For a brief, shimmering moment in the mid-90s, the Trotters had been kings. The novel of their lives had transitioned from a gritty social drama to a glossy jet-set thriller. Anyway, Dell continued, his eyes glazing over with the memory of pure, unadulterated wealth. At first, we didn't know what to do with it. We thought about donating it to the British Museum as a national treasure. We really did. We felt a sense of duty to the crown. We thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Rodney corrected. And then we decided to flog it. Dell grinned. 6.5 million quid, Justin. Can you imagine that? 6.5 million of the Queen's finest nuggets. We divvied the dosh up, making sure our Uncle Albert got a nice little drink, bless his old seafaring soul, and we thought of others. We donated to charity. Enormously, of course. We bought a round of drinks for the whole Nag's Head, Rodney whispered. That was our charity work. It felt like a charity, Dell insisted. Have you seen the state of Trigger? He needs all the help he can get. So, eventually, we had to start thinking about our future. We sought out a city stockbroker, a man with a tie thinner than a strand of spaghetti and a brain like a calculator. He advised us to invest in a new and vibrant venture, a Central American market. Dell stood up, pacing the small office. It was attracting massive funds from all over the world. We were making more money than the Royal Mint. We weren't just flat, Justin. We were ascendant. Chapter 4, The Fall of the Empire. The flashback in Dell's mind was vivid. He remembered the heat of the Caribbean, the smell of expensive sun cream, and the feeling of a platinum credit card in his pocket, a card that felt like it had the power to stop the rotation of the earth if he swiped it hard enough. He remembered Raquel, his significant other, looking like a movie star in a wide-brimmed hat. He remembered young Damien, the fruit of his loins, playing on the deck of a yacht. He remembered Rodney and Cassandra, looking like they finally belonged in a world where the wine didn't come from a box. And then the music changed. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was the sound of a phone not ringing. It was the sight of a computer screen flickering with red numbers that shouldn't have been there. She's into superstitions. The radio had been playing in the hotel lobby. Livin' La Vida Loca. It turned out, Dell said, his voice dropping an octave, that negotiations between the Central American countries had collapsed, wiped out. The market didn't just crash. It evaporated. It was like someone had pulled the plug on the ocean. We'd even paid for the hotel on a credit card. Rodney added, the ghost of the trauma still visible in his eyes. A credit card which was withdrawn while we were still at the breakfast buffet. I was halfway through a bowl of exotic fruit, and suddenly I was an international pauper. Dell nodded solemnly, but Derek Trotter is, if nothing else, a creative businessman. I came up with a solution. We had to leave. Fast. We ran, Rodney said. We literally ran for the airport while the concierge was still looking for the bill. Chapter 5. The Financial Wilderness. The return to the UK was not met with a ticker-tape parade. The news of the Trotter collapse had traveled faster than a Peckham rumor. How long did it take for the news to hit the UK? Justin asked, scribbling notes furiously. About as long as it took for someone to push a button on the internet. Dell sighed. Suddenly, all our so-called business associates wouldn't return our calls. We were cast into a financial wilderness. It was like the desert, but with more rain and less sand. And then there was Mike. Rodney reminded him. Dole's face darkened. Mike Fisher, the landlord of the Nag's Head, a man who had seen the Trotters as his ticket out of the pub trade. Mike invested his life savings in our venture, Dell explained. He actually remortgaged the pub. He's in prison now, awaiting trial. The fraud squad claims he tried to recoup his losses by embezzling the brewery. Never was a man more innocent. He confessed to everything, Dell, Rodney pointed out. He was under duress. Dell shouted. The pressure of the brewing industry is immense. The narrative shifted to the waiting room of the court. The atmosphere was thick with the smell of cheap coffee and the nervous sweat of Peckham's finest. Denzel was pacing, wearing the marble floor down. Uncle Albert was sitting there, looking like a weary old owl. Trigger was. Well, Trigger was staring at a wall, possibly having a conversation with his own shadow. Trig, if I go in there and tell the truth, Denzel had said, Dell and Rodney are going to be spending the next 5 years sharpening Jeffrey Archer's pencils. I'm going to tell them I hear voices. Trigger had replied with the terrifying sincerity of the truly confused. Chapter 6. The Wrong Side of the Grave. The funeral of Uncle Albert should have been a moment of dignified sorrow. Instead, it was a master class in Trotter-esque absurdity. The family stood in the biting cold of a coastal cemetery. Dell was genuinely heartbroken. Albert had been their anchor, the man who had survived the Battle of the Baltic only to be nearly killed by those cooking. I feel bad, Dell whispered to Rodney as they stood by the grave, leaving him here on his own while we were off globe-trotting. We should have taken him to Barbados. He didn't have a passport, Dell, Rodney reminded him. He thought the Germans were still looking for him. They stood amongst a group of strangers. A woman named Marion was crying. A man named Roland was complaining about Albert's wartime sagas. God, he did go on, didn't he? Roland sneered. Never bloody stopped. The John Wayne of the East End. Dell's blood began to simmer. It reached boiling point. He stepped forward, his eyes blazing. You got to remember that a lot of blokes lost their lives for our liberty, just so that 50 years later, prats like you would have the freedom to knock them. You want to go outside and have a chat, Roland? Calm down, Del, Rodney pleaded. It was only when the young boy, Damien, looked up at a passing plane and asked if it was a Spitfire that the reality hit them. Wait a minute, Del said, looking at the headstone. Bunny. Why did you call him Bunny? Because his surname was Warren, Roland said. Albert Warren. Raff. The silence that followed was heavy. Rodney, Del whispered, his face turning ashen. We're at the wrong funeral. Oh, let's go. Rodney hissed, grabbing Bill's arm. They fled the cemetery like grave robbers who had forgotten their shovels. Chapter 7, The Phoenix Arises, sort of. Back in Nelson Mandela House, the grandeur of the millionaire years felt like a dream someone else had had. The flat was cramped, the wallpaper was peeling, and the Inland Revenue was knocking on the door with the persistence of a woodpecker on a metal pole. The court declared me bankrupt, Del announced to the family. But don't worry, I've worked it all out. I'm a trader. I could sell rice to the Chinese. The firm's been liquidized, Del, Rodney said, sitting at the kitchen table. Disqualified, Del corrected. I've been disqualified from running it. That doesn't mean the company is dead. We just need a new managing director. Someone young. Someone enthusiastic. Someone with to GCEs. Rodney looked up, a glimmer of hope or madness in his eyes. Me? Yes, you, Rodney. You can take over Trotter's independent traders. Legally, there's nothing to stop you. You're clean, mostly. And so, the new era began. Rodney Trotter, managing director, Del took a back seat, or rather, he sat in the front seat and shouted directions while Rodney tried to drive. They were back in business. They were trading again. The goal, $48,750 for pounds. That was the debt. That was the mountain they had to climb. Chapter 8, The Golden Ticket. The idea for Gold Rush came to Del like a divine revelation during a late-night session of channel hopping. It's a game show, Rodney, Del shouted, bursting into the living room. Jonathan Ross, you can win 100,000 quid. It's the fastest game show on TV. Del, you think King Edward introduced the potato to England? Rodney said flatly. I didn't hear the question properly. Del insisted. I've worked it out. I'm going to apply. This time next year, we'll be millionaires. Again. This time last week we were millionaires, Cassandra pointed out from the kitchen. But Del was already filling out the form. He wasn't just a bankrupt salesman from Peckham anymore. In his mind, he was a Renaissance man, a lover of fine wines, the theater, and 16th century Italian art. He was Derek Trotter, and the world hadn't seen the last of him. Chapter 9, the Brunei connection. The telephone in the Trotter household was a fickle instrument. Sometimes it brought news of a consignment of hooky VCers. Other times, it was just the electric company wondering if Dell intended to pay his bill within the current century. One evening, as Rodney was trying to maintain a facade of managing director gravitas, the phone rang. Trotter's Independent Traders, how may I help you? Rodney said, his voice an octave deeper than usual. Good evening, a voice responded, accented and dripping with importance. I am wishing to speak with managing director. This is he, Rodney said, puffing out his chest. My name is Rodney Trotter. I am representative of the Sultan of Brunei, the voice continued. Rodney's heart did a little tap dance against his ribs. He looked at Dell, who was currently trying to clean a fake Rolex with a bit of spit and a rag. Dell, it's the Sultan of Brunei. Dell stopped rubbing the watch. Yeah, and I'm the Pope's golf partner. Give it here. But Rodney was already hooked. How may I be of assistance, sir? His Highness has seen your advertisement in the newspaper. He would like you to fly to Brunei and be his consultant. Rodney's eyes glazed over. He could see it now. Gold-plated yachts, silk robes, and a world where duty-free wasn't just a suggestion. Consultant. On what, specifically? Recently, the voice said, suppressed laughter starting to bubble through the accent, His Highness bought a crappy old three-wheeled van, and he wants to know how to start it on cold mornings. The line exploded into the unmistakable, high-pitched cackle of Mickey Pierce. Rodney slammed the phone down. I knew it was him. I was just winding him up. Dell shook his head. Rodney, you're about as good at winding people up as a sundial in a coal cellar. Get back to your paperwork. Chapter 10, Fantasy Therapy. Rodney's marriage to Cassandra was, in his own words, a series of minor hiccups in the bedroom department. To address this, Rodney had turned to the modern equivalent of a witch doctor, a lifestyle magazine. It's called Fantasy Therapy, Cass, Rodney explained that night, his voice hushed. This expert in America says our troubles stem from memory baggage. We need to become different people, reborn. Cassandra looked at him over the top of her book. Different people. Do I get to be someone who lives in a house without a yellow vent parked outside? No, it's about iconoclastic autosuggestion. Rodney insisted. We write down our fantasy figure, and for one night, the other person becomes that figure. No dressing up required. It's all in the mind. All right, Cassandra sighed. I'll try anything to stop you talking about memory baggage. They wrote down their choices. Cassandra handed her slip to Rodney. He opened it and blinked. The bill. You want me to be a copper? Just a position of authority, Rodney, she said, a mischief glint in her eye. Rodney's own fantasy involved a certain gladiator, or maybe a heroic figure from a film he'd seen recently. He didn't say it, but he had a plan. The next evening, the plan went horribly wrong. Del burst into the flat to find Cassandra dressed in a full policewoman's uniform, complete with a baton and a look of professional disapproval. Rodney, on the other hand, was standing there in a leather tunic, looking like he'd been rejected from a low-budget production of Spartacus. "Oh, my God!" Del shouted, nearly dropping his bag of takeaway. "I thought we were being raided. Cassandra, I didn't know you joined the force. And Rodney, what are you? A Roman centurion with a vitamin D deficiency. It's a fancy dress party. Del," Rodney yelled, his face turning a shade of purple that matched his tunic. "We're going to a party. My ex-boss at the bank invited us." At 5:30, Del asked, skeptical, "A bit early for a rave, isn't it?" "It's an early party for people who have to be up for work." Rodney grabbed Cassandra's arm. "Come on, Reg Hollis, let's go before he starts asking for our badges." Chapter 11, The Lights of Gold Rush. The BBC television studios were a labyrinth of cables, tired security guards, and the smell of industrial-grade hairspray. Del stood in the wings of the Gold Rush set, adjusting his suit. He told the producers he was a connoisseur of the arts. He'd told them his hobbies included fine wines and 16th century Italian Renaissance art. In reality, his knowledge of fine wine stopped at anything that didn't have a screw top. And the only Renaissance art he owned was a framed picture of a crying boy that he'd bought at a car boot sale in 1984. Welcome to another edition of the show that is taking the country by storm. The voice of Jonathan Ross boomed through the speakers. This is Thursday. This is live. This is Jonathan Ross, and this is Gold Rush. Del stepped onto the stage, his smile fixed, his rings gleaming under the studio lights. Beside him were his competitors, Mike Wallace, a financial advisor who looked like he'd swallowed a lemon, and Janice Scott, who seemed genuinely terrified of the cameras. And finally, Ross announced, "We have Derek Trotter from Peckham." Derek is a businessman who lives with Raquel, his significant other. His pastimes include fine wines, the theater, and 16th century Italian Renaissance art. Del gave a thumbs up. "Lovely jubbly. Jonathan, just happy to be here for the culture, you know." Chapter 12, The Rainbow Road. The game began with a flurry of questions. Del's finger was poised over the buzzer like a predator waiting for a slow-moving gazelle. Whose famous diary recorded the plague and the Great Fire of London? Ross asked. Del hit the buzzer. Mrs. Dale's. The studio went silent. Ross blinked. Nice try, Del, but I'm afraid that's not right. You're frozen now. Eventually, through a series of fluke errors by his opponents, Del found himself as the first challenger on the Rainbow Road. He stood in the center of the stage, A 1-pound coin clutched in his hand his guaranteed prize. Whatever else happens, that's yours, Ross said. Just make sure it ain't Irish, eh? Dell quipped, winking at the camera. He breezed through the early rounds. He knew Kilimanjaro was in Africa mostly because he'd once tried to sell a crate of T-shirts with the mountain printed on the wrong side. He survived a challenge from Janice. The money climbed. 10,000, 25,000. And then the green question. In which state was President Kennedy born? Dell hesitated. He remembered the news footage. He remembered the tragedy. Well, when he was assassinated in 1963, he was in a terrible state. He died. I need the name of the state. Dell, Ross urged. Texas, Florida, or California? Dell sweated. He used his shot in the dark. Florida, he shouted. No, Ross sighed. It was Texas. But you played your shot, so you're still in the game for the penalty question. Chapter 13, the Ravel debacle. The penalty question was worth 50,000 pounds. If Dell got it right, he'd move to the final gold question for 100,000. Which classical guitarist wrote the opera The Child and the Enchantment? Was it Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Dell's brain stalled. Classical music. He was a man of the people. He liked the theme from Z Cars and anything by Tom Jones. He needed his SOS. He needed his brother. My brother, Rodney, Dell said, he's a graduate to GCEs. He knows his classics. Back in the flat, the phone rang. Rodney, still in his Spartacus tunic, answered it. Hello, Rodney. It's Jonathan Ross. Oh, piss off, Mickey, you're getting on my tits now. Rodney yelled. Rodney, it's not Mickey, it's the BBC. Your brother is on 50 grand. Realization hit Rodney like a bucket of cold water. He listened to the question. Ravel, Segovia, or Rodrigo? Ravel. Rodney shouted into the phone. I'm 100% sure, Dell, it's Ravel. Dell, back in the studio, looked at the camera with the confidence of a man who had just been handed the keys to the Bank of England. It's Ravel, Jonathan. My brother knows. He's got the brains in the family. Are you sure, Derek? Ross asked. You don't have to take his answer. No, no. Rodney's spot on. Ravel. The buzzer sounded a long, agonizing drone of failure. Derek, Ross said, his voice filled with genuine pity. That was the wrong answer. It was Segovia. Dell's face fell. The 100,000 pounds vanished into the ether. What? But Rodney said he's got to GCEs. Chapter 14, The Return of the Conqueror Not. The journey back to Peckham was long and silent. Dell walked through the door of the flat to find Rodney and Cassandra waiting, still dressed as a gladiator and a policewoman. What happened? Rodney asked, his voice small. What happened? Dell exploded. What happened is that you're a dipstick, Rodney. That's what happened. Everyone knows that Ravel makes shoes. It was a trick question, and you fell for it. Shoes? Rodney stammered. Ravel wrote Bolero. I don't care if he wrote the Bible. He makes shoes in the Peckham High Street. You lost us 50 grand. The argument raged until the phone rang again. It was the producer of Gold Rush. Hello. Yes, this is Derek Trotter. What? No. Really? Dell turned to the room, his eyes wide. There's been a mistake. The producer says it was Ravel. Segovia was just the guitarist who performed it or something. They've checked the facts. I can have the 50,000 pounds and come back on the show next week. The room erupted. Rodney cheered. Raquel cried. Even Cassandra hugged her prisoner. See, Dell shouted, his voice reaching a crescendo of triumph. I knew I was right. I knew the Trotters were back. He grabbed the phone again. Yeah. Well, I tell you what we're going to do. Give all the money to charity. Yeah. And if you phone here once again, I'm going to come down there and kick your arse into shredded duck. He slammed the phone down. Dell, Rodney screamed. What did you do that for? Because, Dell said, a sly grin spreading across his face, that wasn't the producer. I could hear the jukebox at the Nag's Head. That was Mickey Pierce again. He sat down, exhausted but undefeated. Don't worry, Rodney. This time next year, we'll be millionaires. And in the heart of Peckham, for the 1,000th time, they almost believed him. Chapter 15, The Morning After the Morning After. The following morning, Nelson Mandela House felt like the setting of a hungover Greek tragedy. The adrenaline of the Gold Rush debacle had dissipated, leaving only the cold reality of the inland revenue's interest rates and the lingering smell of Raquel's burnt toast. Dell sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of tea that was mostly condensed milk and desperation. He was staring at a pile of bills as if he could intimidate them into paying themselves. Rodney, Dell barked as his brother shuffled into the kitchen, looking like a man who had spent the night sleeping in a tumble dryer. Where is the inventory for the new stock? Rodney groaned, rubbing his eyes. Dell, it's 8 in the morning, and technically, since I'm the managing director, shouldn't I be asking you for that? Dell let out a short, sharp laugh. Managing director. Rodney, you're the only managing director in London who still gets an allowance from his older brother. Now, where is it? It's in the van. Rodney sighed. But it's mostly those unbreakable umbrellas we bought from Boyke. I tried one this morning. It snapped the second a light breeze hit it. Dell didn't look up. That's because you don't know the technique. Rodney, you have to open them with finesse. They're not umbrellas. They're aerodynamic sunshades. It's all in the marketing. Raquel entered, Damien trailing behind her. The boy was wearing a T-shirt that said Future Millionaire, a gift from Dell that currently felt like a cruel joke. Del, we've had another letter from the council. Raquel said, her voice weary. They're asking about the arrears again. Del stood up, smoothing his waistcoat. Don't you worry about the council. Sweetheart, I've got a meeting this afternoon with a very influential business associate. Top-level stuff. Is it Trigger? Rodney asked, deadpan. Del paused, his hand on the door handle. He might be in the vicinity. Yes,